Today guys, I'm going to be telling you how to create an absolutely stunning motion blur in GTA 5. You can create some beautiful pictures with this. So before, I used to create a motion blur for a lot of my thumbnails that looked like this. At the time, I thought it looked pretty damn great, but then I figured out another way to do it and make it look like this, where it looks absolutely stunning, and you could just create some very cool pictures. Now this doesn't have to only be done with GTA photos. You could do this with virtually any picture, even of cars in real life. So with that said, let's get into how to do this. You guys are going to want to follow a few simple tips to make sure your photos come out perfectly. With that said, let's get into it. So the very first tip I can give you is make sure you do this on a straight stretch of road. This is extremely important, and you also want to have a nice clean background to go along with it. For example, we're just going to do one example right here on a curved road like this. So what we're going to do is use this car, start recording, and then you guys can see the background is not clean, and we're going to drive down this road just like this. And then we're going to stop the recording right here. Perfect. We have our first example of why you don't want to do it in an area like this. You kind of want to do it in an area more like this, where the background is nice and simple. So let's go ahead and do the exact same thing here, and also the road is completely straight, which will help out a lot. So let's get in line and start recording. Let's take a Bugatti Divo for example. Go ahead and delete this other car real quick, and now let's start this recording up. So what we're going to do is just drive nice and straight, start recording, and then in a couple of seconds we just stop the recording. Just like that. So now we got that clip. Now I'm also going to do it in another location. Before we go over there, let's just switch the car once again, make it a nice orange, and let's just teleport over to that waypoint. Now what I would recommend doing is doing it somewhere in this area. As long as you don't do it near that big ass building right there, it'll look pretty damn great. The reason you don't want to do it there is because the building will look kind of strange in the picture. But let's do it right here just like this. I think this is a perfect spot to do it. So we're going to go ahead and click start recording, and we're going to drive forward and just keep on driving for a little bit. And then we're going to stop the recording right there. So now we got 3 clips. So now what we're going to do is head on over to the Rockstar editor. We're going to create a brand new project, and we will add the first clip right here. Sometimes this clip that we're editing right now will look amazing, and sometimes it won't. But anyways, in terms of the camera options, make sure you click move with target and then select rigid. And then what we're also going to do is just trim the clip to where we start driving. So let's start it right there. And then what we're also going to do is change the speed down to 35%. You can see we have a 15-second long clip. That's a really long time. So let's trim off a little bit at the start right here, and then just a little bit at the end right there. Now we have an 8-second clip. That's a lot better. Let's go ahead and click save and export it at 60 FPS, just like this. It'll take a couple of seconds to do. Like I said, sometimes a picture like this will come out perfectly, but most of the time if you have a building in the background, it'll look kind of messed up. Sometimes the program will just fix itself and kind of just get rid of the building, and it'll still look amazing. Anyways, let's go ahead and do the exact same thing to the other clips. We got our file right here. Let's go ahead and export it the exact same way, just like this, and it'll only take a minute. And then let's do the exact same thing for the final clip, and then I'll meet you guys in Adobe Photoshop. Alright, so we are in Photoshop right now, as you guys can see, and now what you guys want to do is open up your file explorer, and you want to go to where those rendered videos are saved to. For me, they're my local disk, users, my profile, app data, local, Rockstar games, GTA 5, videos, and then rendered. So you guys can see we got all 3 files right here, which is perfect. And then you want to go into Photoshop, click File, and then click Import Video Frames to Layers. And then you want to go to that file and select the first clip. So let's go ahead and select this one and click Open. Now you guys can do a selected range where you only want like maybe 2 seconds or 1 second, which honestly does work fairly well, and it saves a lot of time, as you guys will see once you actually start doing this. But let's just go ahead and click the clip how it is and click continue. Now sometimes this will take a bit of time depending on how long the clip is, but once it finishes making the layers, you'll see all of the layers on the side of the screen. We have 486 different layers. What you want to do is click the first layer, scroll all the way up, and then shift click the last layer. This will select all the layers from there, then go to layer, and then go over here and click show layers. Click that, and then all of the layers will be visible once again. From that point, what you guys want to go ahead and do is go back to layer, and then smart objects, and convert it to a smart object. Now this will take a lot of time depending on how many layers you have. If you have maybe 60 layers, then it'll only take like a minute to 2 minutes. But if you have almost 500 layers, it's going to take at least 5 minutes. So let the program do its work, and then we'll jump back to it once it's ready to go. So just for the sake of time saving, I went ahead and just rendered every single one of these files just to make things a little bit easier on my end. So now we got all of the files rendered. Let's go ahead and mess around with this one right here. So we have converted it to a smart object. What we're going to do now is go back to layer, go over to smart objects, and then stack mode and turn it into a mean stack mode. From here, we will create a beautiful motion blur. Like I said, sometimes it'll look amazing. Other times it'll look absolutely terrible because of the background, because of the turn in the road. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'd say it's about 40% chance it'll look good. Yeah, so like I said, 40% chance it'll look good. You could see why we don't do it here. The houses look all messed up. The road looks messed up. I mean, the car itself, this area right here looks pretty great. I'm not gonna lie. But the rest of the picture looks terrible, which, like I said, is why you don't want to do it in an area like this. So let's move on over to the Bugatti Divo right here and do the exact same thing. Head on over to Smart Objects, Stack Mode, and then select Mean. There we go. Now, obviously, you're not going to make the picture this big. You want to get rid of the watermark and everything, so let's just go ahead and modify this, make it a little bit bigger, and select, and then put it like right around here, I'd say. Take a look at how beautiful that looks. Now let's compare this motion blur to something I would have made in the past. Now by doing this, what I did is pretty much just cut out the entire car and then apply the actual motion blur filter in the blur section here, which honestly doesn't look bad. You can make pictures look pretty good still. And then I added a spin blur to the wheels. This looks pretty great, but I have to admit, this makes the car look like it's going 300 miles per hour. Well, this, honestly, it just looks like it's going kind of fast, but in total, the motion blur just looks so much better here. Now, if you want to make it look even better, don't forget, we're using Rockstar Editor. So even though I record everything in 4K, I make 4K thumbnails, the car still comes out looking like this. And it's still a little pixelated and blurry. So what I like to do to mess around with it a bit is go to Smart Sharpen right here, and you guys can see it just makes the car look a little bit better. Everything just looks a little bit better. So it's up to you if you guys want to do this. We're just going to go ahead and select OK, and now the car looks a little bit more crisp. And if you want to mess around with it just a bit more, go to Adjustments, Selective Color, and mess around with red all the way down to white. Don't mess around with neutrals or black because it will mess up the photo. But what you want to do is just mess around with the black section here, and it'll kind of just make the picture look a bit better. So let's go ahead and mess around with this right now. You can see the yellows really make the background pop more. The greens really don't do anything. The cyans always play a huge part in making, like, the cyan parts look a lot more vibrant. And then the blues will obviously make a big difference to the car itself. The magentas really don't do too much either. And then the whites will really change the barrier that you see on the road right there. So honestly, let's make that barrier like that white. And now we got a really beautiful picture of this car with that motion blur. Everything looks absolutely phenomenal. Like even the wheels, you could see the brake caliper through the wheels. Unlike in this one, where you can't see anything. That's why I like doing this one a lot more, because it pretty much just makes everything flawless, and all you gotta do is click a couple buttons and wait a little bit. But now let's do it to the final picture, this Porsche right here. So let's go to Layer, Smart Objects, Stack Mode, Mean. And if you want to, you can also do Median. It'll just make a little bit less of a motion blur, not by much though. I would recommend doing Mean. So let's go ahead and activate this and wait for it to load. And there we go once again. This one honestly looks pretty great, but I have to admit this one looks amazing because, it's on a road. We got the barrier right here. This one still looks great, but it is on an airport runway, so it doesn't look as great. Plus, we got something in the background right here, but honestly, it's barely noticeable. And then, of course, you modify it a little bit, make it a little bit bigger, put it in the position you want to, something like that. And then, of course, you add the sharpness, color effects, and things like that. So this one looks pretty great. I would have to say this one looks flawless, and this one looks like garbage. So you could see what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Obviously, this one, you don't want that stuff in the background, and you don't want the road to turn. And then this one looks great, but there are still some very minor things in the background right here. Obviously, the runway also goes this way as well. And then, of course, the runway itself, isn't a road, so it looks a little bit strange, but honestly, it still looks pretty damn great. But this one looks absolutely flawless because it's got the barrier, it's got a very clean background with nothing in the way whatsoever, and then obviously you got the road, you could see the line right there and the line right there. So this is pretty much how you do it, and you can create some absolutely stunning photos by doing this. And if you take those tips that I told you into consideration, you shouldn't ever have to deal with this, and you shouldn't ever have to deal with anything like this kind of being weird in the background. Even the mountain looks kind of messed up. So you always want to have just a nice clean backdrop like this, and it'll always come out looking perfect. But let's quickly compare this to what it looked like before. So we have the before picture, and then we have the after. You guys see the difference there? I think this picture looks absolutely amazing, and it came out pretty much perfect. Like I said, obviously having that selective color in there that messes around with the colors, makes everything a bit more vibrant as well, plays a huge part. You could see the difference right there. So let me know what you guys think of this down below in the comment section. I know this helped me out a ton. It definitely made my thumbnails look so much nicer, and I'm sure you guys are going to be able to create some beautiful pictures as well. So with that said, hopefully this helped you guys out, and I will catch you guys in the next video.